because we all know everyone has the same amount of time. So then it begs the question, how do certain people elevate their lives to stratospheric levels and others are not able to, and everyone has the same amount of time? Well, he said, it's not about time. It's about priority. And if you're telling me that you don't have enough time, what you're actually saying is it's not a priority. That was tough to swallow for me, because I had to really look at myself and say, well, yeah, everyone has the same amount of time. What am I doing differently? Well, the different thing is that it's not that important to me. I haven't made the effort to make it that important to me. If it really was, it'd already be a priority, but I haven't. So then I looked at myself and I was asking myself, why? Was I lazy? Was I scared? Did I not know? Did I not have knowledge to figure out how to make it work? Whatever that priority was. And oftentimes what I found with myself and with my clients is that it's fear. Fear of what it means to make the thing that you really want to be a priority. How making that a priority would affect other priorities that you have previously committed to. How it might influence or affect the people around you who you also may have priorities with. The list goes on. But one thing I will tell you from personal experience and seeing this happen with dozens of clients, the moment you choose to make the thing that you want to be a priority is the moment your life changes. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Impostor to Icon podcast. I am your wingman, Thomas Edwards. I'm so glad that you're here. And in this episode, I wanted to take a moment and stop. And I wanted to check in with you and ask you, what the beep are you doing? And it seems like kind of a radical question to ask in this moment. But I know for me personally, sometimes I get in such a rhythm that I don't take time to stop and check in and make sure that the things that I'm doing and getting myself all caught up in are in alignment with the vision that I want to see come to fruition. And there have been times when I wouldn't stop or wouldn't check in or reflect. And then I'd find myself in a place that I didn't want to be. And the only person I would have to blame is myself. And so I spend time stopping, checking in, seeing where I'm at. Are things still in alignment? And if they're not, what needs to be changed in order for me to continue towards my vision? And in this episode, we're going to talk about, how do you actually stop? Like, what is the process of stopping? And even though I said, what the beep are you doing? It's kind of a play on words. We're actually going to use the word beep as an acronym for things that you want to check in on and make sure that they are in alignment, so that way when you move forward and you're continuing to do what you want to do, it's headed to where you want to be. All right, so let's get right into it. And the beep is an acronym for four things. So B stands for boundaries. We're talking about the first E, which is energy, the second E, which is expectations, and then the last, which is P, priorities. I'm going to walk you through each of those stages, and I'm going to share anecdotes of how I process these things whenever I stop and check in and ask myself, what the beep are you doing? So let's hit the first one. Boundaries. Boundaries is something that I have conversations with my clients all the time, and these are also things that I battle and deal with and manage myself. And what it essentially means is, are your boundaries fortified? Are they set up and they're fortified and being enforced when someone is crossing that boundary or something is crossing that boundary? Well, in order for you to check in on that, we have to kind of determine, okay, what boundaries have been placed? Let's say in the past, I like to do 90 days. So every 90 days, I like to stop and check in and do this type of thing. So in the past 90 days, what boundaries have I set up? New boundaries. What old boundaries currently exist as it pertains to my relationships, as it pertains to places, people, places, and things? Oftentimes, boundaries really come up in our close relationships. And so what boundaries have been put up? On a scale from 1 to 10, how well have they been enforced? Check in and see, have these boundaries even been crossed? And if so, how have you been doing enforcing those boundaries? Now, those who might have varying attachment styles or different ways of thinking and processing things, that score might be low. That may be high, but it's a good way for you to check in. How well are you enforcing the boundaries that you're setting? And what can you do moving ahead to enforce those boundaries even better if there's room for improvement? What new boundaries need to be set to make sure that you're able to stay focused on your goals in the direction that you want to go in? Oftentimes we get caught up in the idea that boundaries are designed for the other person when that actually is not true. The person who is most important in setting the boundaries is the person setting the boundary themselves. When you're able to create more boundaries for yourself, it gives you sometimes physical space, but also gives you some tangible space from not a tangible, I think it's more like a figurative way for you to be able to do the things that you need to do, hit the goals that you need to set, lock in the habits that you're trying to lock in. And when there's other things that are getting in the way of that, you have to set the boundary to make sure that they don't do that. No one's going to be out there paying attention to your boundaries. In fact, the time I've learned about boundaries the most has been with my daughter. My daughter is the ultimate boundary pusher. And I think all kids are, right? Like, I think kids are designed to be curious and to test the limits of what they can do for themselves and to other people. Period, end of story. Kids do this. And they're really good where if they know they can push the boundary, they're going to keep pushing it. They now have been given permission to continue to push the boundaries. And anyone who's a parent understands exactly what I'm talking about, because the moment you give an inch, they take a mile. And it's not their fault. It's actually pretty nice that they choose to do that, in my opinion. But we have to obviously set the boundaries to let them know. So where that's showing up in your adult life, what people aren't honoring your boundaries? And have you been communicating these boundaries at all, let alone enough? And so if the answer is no, or you haven't been, then it's time for you to be able to do that. Set those boundaries, work on enforcing them, because those boundaries are for you, not for them. All right, let's move on to the E. First E is energy. Man, some of us feel like we have all the energy in the world until we don't. Sometimes we feel like we can keep going forever until something happens where we're forced to stop and we burn out. Energy allocation, energy protection is super important. I mean that from a physical wellness state. I mean it also mentally, and I also mean it spiritually and emotionally. We need to do a better job managing our energy. I push myself. There's no doubt about it. I am an achiever. I am a high achiever. I love to push myself beyond the limit. And sometimes it comes with the cost. It was only a couple of months ago, I was, really pushing myself. And when I had the first sign that maybe I might be burning out, I ignored it because I wanted to keep going. I wanted to continue to push myself just a little bit more because I was almost there. And then I came down with a massive migraine, the biggest I've ever had in my life. And I hadn't had migraines like that for a long time. And it put me out for about a week. And it really humbled me. I don't have infinite energy. I don't. And I need to be sure of not only how I'm using my energy, be aware of how much energy I'm using, and most importantly, where am I putting my energy into? And so once again, when you're stopping and you're checking in, see where your energy is going. And there's so many different ways you can take a look at it. For me, I'm very data driven. So I will do an inventory of how much time I'm spending out of my 168 hours in the week. How much time is spent doing particular things? How much time is spent doing work? How much time is spent with my family? How much time is being spent sleeping and taking care of myself and working out and learning and contributing to my community and focusing on spirituality and connecting to my higher power and recovery? I obsess around the details of the data. And when I start to see patterns, I'm able to make better decisions on where it's best to allocate my energy. And it ebbs and flows over time. But check in with yourself and ask, have I been using my energy the most effective and efficient way? And if the answer is no, what are some ways that you can better do that? And if you end up coming with a big list, maybe there's 4 or 5, just focus on a couple for the next 90 days. And then when you get a hang of it, work on the next 2. Try to keep it simple as much as possible, because we can always go in various different directions, but the importance is keeping it simple. That way you can not only see the transformation happen over time, but you can measure it too. It's much easier to do that. It's kind of like in marketing when they split test advertisements. They only make subtle changes, if more than one, because they need to know if that change is the difference maker that they should move forward with. So do that for your life. Make these subtle tweaks and do them one at a time so you can see if it actually makes a huge impact in your life. Which then comes around to the second E, which is expectations. Expectations can literally be the ruin of us. And I've heard many times people say expectations are essentially premeditated resentments. Because the moment you have an expectation of someone, they have not met it. Think about what I just said. The moment you set an expectation of someone, in that moment, they haven't met it. And while you may not notice it's happening, resentment is starting to breed. It's like a bacteria that starts to grow a little bit over time. You may not even notice that it's there, but you planted the seed of expectation, and now it's starting to take root in the form of resentment. And you don't really know how big the expectations are until there's an outburst, until there's disappointment, until you feel let down because that person, that place, that thing didn't live up to the expectation that you set. So the first part is being responsible for the expectations that you have of yourself and other people. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is allowing yourself to release yourself of these expectations. Easier said than done, believe me. And so expectations. I don't really know if it's possible to not have expectations. But what I do know is I've worked so hard to minimize the amount of expectations that I have. In fact, I think I'm in a place now where the person I have the most expectations of is myself. But I've had to work really hard to relieve myself of expectations of my daughter, to relieve expectations of my wife, my clients, my friends, my colleagues, some of my team members. And it can be hard. And part of it is because I want everyone to thrive. I see the best in everyone. I see the best in you. And when I don't see that, I expect you to live up to that potential, or at least make an effort towards it. And that's not everyone's path. And when I realized that was really hard to come to terms with, because then you just start to realize, wow, maybe there might be some wasted potential here. And that might be a judgment. I'm willing to acknowledge that publicly. And that's not my business. And that's where the humility came in, where it's not my business whether or not someone meets their own expectations or for them to meet my expectations. Like, most of the expectations that exist in the world are not even communicated. Think about in your relationships. If there's things that you expect of someone else, have you told them this? How would they respond? Would they be willing to meet that expectation? Right? There's so many layers to this. And all we have is, most of these expectations are up here that we're just fabricating and assuming that they understand and they know this. And then we're living our lives in accordance to these expectations that we've created, but they're only staying up here. If you do have expectations of people, places, and things, then communicate that and see if it can be lived up to. But if you're not willing to have that conversation, then I would suggest that you let it go. You let those expectations go. And you just focus on your side of the street. And lastly, but not least, priorities. Earlier, I was in a conversation with the client, and this is a conversation that I have pretty often. Plenty of busy professionals trying to figure out how to navigate their life, how to navigate their business, how to live a sustainable, healthy life, how to have time with their family, how to have a great connection with their partner, all these things, how to pursue hobbies. And they always tell me this really awesome line, which is, I don't have time. Thomas, I don't have time. I don't know where to find the time. And I hear this repeatedly. There was a man I heard who said something really profound about time. Because we all know everyone has the same amount of time. So then it begs the question, how do certain people elevate their lives to stratospheric levels and others are not able to, and everyone has the same amount of time? Well, he said, it's not about time. It's about priority. And if you're telling me that you don't have enough time, what you're actually saying is it's not a priority. That was tough to swallow for me, because I had to really look at myself and say, well, yeah, everyone has the same amount of time. What am I doing differently? Well, the different thing is that it's not that important to me. I haven't made the effort to make it that important to me. If it really was, it'd already be a priority, but I haven't. So then I looked at myself and I was asking myself, why? Was I lazy? Was I scared? Did I not know? Did I not have knowledge to figure out how to make it work? Whoever that priority was. And oftentimes what I found with myself and with my clients is that it's fear. Fear of what it means to make the thing that you really want to be a priority. How making that a priority would affect other priorities that you have previously committed to. How it might influence or affect the people around you who you also may have priorities with. The list goes on. But one thing I will tell you from personal experience and seeing this happen with dozens of clients, the moment you choose to make the thing that you want to be a priority is the moment your life changes. When you finally decide to commit, then you start to see what's actually real in your life. You start to see what's real with the people in your life. You start to see the places that are real. You start to see the things in your life that are actually real. And those things that are, those people, places, and things that are real that show up for you are meant to be there to support you in the priority that you just chose to make. And so I encourage you, I plead with you, whatever that thing is that you have not made a priority yet, and it's been something that you've been wanting to make a priority for quite some time. I know for some of my clients, it's been years. Make it a priority. And when you make it a priority, you will realize that you will have all the time in the world. And I'll share with you what my priorities are as potentially an opportunity for you to see a framework. And now, before I share it with you, I want you to know that I always like to start from a high level. We'll call it an umbrella, because there's multiple things that will lie beneath these priorities I'm sharing with you. But understand that when I look at my life and I look at my calendar, all of these priorities have some space in it. Out of my 168 hours a day, each week, 100, if we had 168 hours a day, that'd be incredible. 168 hours a week. And I look at my week, all of my priorities are in there, and they're acknowledged, and there's something that I'm doing to contribute to that. So here they are. And not necessarily in this order. So my first priority is my higher power, who I call God, and making sure that I connect on a consistent basis every single day. I have to make space. To me, I have to make space for God. I have to. He's the reason why I exist. He's the reason why I have the gifts that I have. He's the reason why I even have this platform to even share this message with you. He's the reason why I'm still around to share such a message. So I have to make space for that. If he's making space for me in this world, I can make space for him in mine. Second thing is my sobriety. Between those two things, the rest of my life is predicated on these two things. So focusing on making sure that I'm connected to recovery, I'm connected to my community, and that I'm also contributing in service work. What can I do to give? What can I do to provide experience, strength, and hope for other people struggling with addiction that can hopefully have them turn over a new leaf and live a beautiful life? That for me is really, really important. I got a lot. I want to give back. Number 3, space for me. Sometimes we get confused. We think, for those who might understand sobriety or spirituality, that's taking space for you. That is not. That is more along the lines of, in my opinion, inside the spiritual arena. When I'm talking about space for me, I'm talking about taking yourself out to enjoy life, exploring new hobbies, maybe doubling down on current hobbies, checking out new passions, allowing yourself to be in your passion, just going out and having fun with yourself. One of my affirmations is, I'm my own best company. And I believe that to be true. When no one's around and I don't have access to anyone, for a little bit of time, I can enjoy myself and have the best time ever. And I practice that each week by spending some time with myself, doing things that I love and enjoy. Number 4, family. They are the best. And making sure that I put time in my calendar to spend individual time with my wife, individual time with my daughter, and then time as a family together at minimum. This doesn't include dinners every night. This doesn't include putting my daughter to bed every night when I can. But just at minimum, having that dedicated time. They have to be in my calendar, period, end of story. Number 5, business. Duh. Right? I have to, and it's not so much making a living, we'll get into that, but really being in the mission of my business. Spending time doing everything I can to get my message out, to reach out to people, to connect with people, to impact people's lives, to help inspire transformation so they can go out and inspire other people and inspire transformation in their lives. I'm 100% dedicated to that. So making sure that's in my calendar. Now, that's also how I make money. So it's going to be a big part of that. And last but not least, contribution, or otherwise what I would like to call value. I'm thinking about how I'm giving value. I'm thinking about how I'm creating value. I'm thinking about how I'm, sharing value. And this might mean money, but this might mean other things too. But whatever is going to allow me to experience the level of freedom that I want to create in the world, this is where I focus on that. Now, when it comes to money, I think about cash flow. I think about debt. I think about budgeting. But I also think about value. Am I continuously giving more value than I'm receiving? Do I owe anyone anything? Do I owe anyone service? And not from a business standpoint, but do I feel obligated to provide service to someone? Do I need to reach out and see how I can support someone? How much of this time and energy and value do I have to give? I need to allocate that budget, right? It goes back to energy, making sure that I have enough energy allocated to be able to give that. And those are my 6 priorities. That's it, right? And there's a bunch of other things that maybe are under that umbrella. But I have 6 things that at the end of the day, those are the most important things. And to me, nothing else matters. Nothing else is as a priority. If someone reaches out to me for something and it's not in alignment with these 6 things, the answer is no. Once I have these priorities in check, I can promise you the other 3 things, your boundaries, your energy, and your expectations become so much more simpler. Easier to set boundaries when you know what your priorities are. Easier to allocate your energy accordingly once you know where your priorities are. So much easier to manage expectations when you know where your priorities are. So I kind of saved the best for last, but the P is the foundation in the beat, honestly. So to recap, it starts with boundaries, goes through to energy, managing expectations, and making sure that you are setting the right priorities. This is how you stop and check in and ask yourself, what the beep are you doing? Because if these things aren't together, it's going to be very challenging for you to get to where you want to be. There's going to be a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles, a lot of things pushing and creating resistance that's preventing you to get there. So do yourself a favor. If you haven't done this now, set some time over the next few days to stop, check in, and ask yourself, what the beep am I doing? Am I going the right direction? If so, great. If I'm not, how can I right the ship? How can I course correct and get back online and in direction towards my goal? I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Please like it if you really enjoyed it. I would love to hear what you thought of the acronym BEEP, BEEP. Did you like it? Did you not like it? If you have questions about it, comment below. Let me know. And I'm doing podcast episodes every single week. So just be sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll be generally around the same time that you'll be notified when a new episode comes out. I'm going to have solo episodes, but I'm also going to obviously have guests on here too. And we're going to talk about the imposter. We're going to talk about the imposter within us and how do we overcome the imposter within us so we can become an icon of our lives. And if you want to know what the connection is between what the beep you're doing and imposter to icon, well, when you feel like an imposter, oftentimes you feel like you may not be on purpose. There might be something that's slightly misaligned. You might feel like you're doing things that don't feel like it's getting you to where you want to be. Maybe you kind of feel like you're doing things and maybe you're creating success, but you're not sure if you're worthy of that success. Chances are you got to stop and ask yourself, what the beep are you doing? And that will help you create clarity. That will hopefully build that bridge between the imposter in you and the icon that you're meant to be. So with that, hope you guys enjoy this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. And by the way, if you're looking for more content and you want to stick around on YouTube, check out this episode. It'll tell you a little bit more about this topic and much more.